Welcome to another Tempo Storm Meta Snapshot breakdown. Ashes of Outland has been out for a while now, and with it, the meta continues to develop. The top tier of the meta is filled with tempo decks, as they comprise the majority of the best decks in the game. From Demon Hunter to Warrior, the meta is filled with interesting but similar decks, and some of them are fairly high skill capped. In this edition of the Meta Snapshot, a new deck even makes its way into Tier 1 thanks to the rest of its favorable matchups becoming more popular. The meta is diverse and filled with a lot of different classes and archetypes, with only Paladin and Shaman getting the short end of the stick. Before we jump deeper and take a look at the top decks of the meta, be sure to subscribe to our channel and to turn notifications on to be kept up to date with all of our Hearthstone content. If you're a fan of Legends of Runeterra, we have a surprise coming for you later this week, so stay tuned. Now that that's all out of the way, let's jump right into Tier 1. Leading off Tier 1 this time around is Tempo Warrior. As the meta lives its life, players are realizing just how versatile and strong this warrior archetype is. Previously believed to be the second best deck in the game, Tempo Warrior has now rightfully claimed its spot at the top of Tier 1. This archetype is extremely flexible and can be very difficult to pilot at times, leaving players to often misplay with it, resulting in losses. Tempo Warrior will likely lead the meta for as long as it can, thanks to the powerful combination of the Pirate package alongside the Enrage package. Tempo Warrior has a very solid matchup against some of the more aggressive decks of the meta, such as Tempo Demon Hunter, as they often can struggle to close the game out against you. As for bad matchups, they tend to struggle against some of the more control-based decks, such as Galakrond Priest. Next up in Tier 1 is the previously mentioned Tempo Demon Hunter. This archetype was once believed to be the best deck in the game, but has slightly fallen from favor due to this rise of Tempo Warrior. As you'd expect though, Illidan is no stranger to power, and continues to thrive in this meta. With Priest and Rogue being so prevalent, Tempo Demon Hunter will always be a solid choice for the latter. Tempo Demon Hunter's best matchup comes from slower decks like Galakrond Priest, as the Priest can struggle to contest the board early enough to stop the Demon Hunter from mounting enough pressure. Typically, the Priest will need to stick a minion to Apotheosis in order to win this matchup handily. As for unfavorable matchups, Warrior is the bane of Illidan, with both Tempo and Control Warrior being problematic for this deck. Following Demon Hunter is Tempo Rogue. This archetype is always at the forefront of the meta thanks to the powerful cards that Rogue has access to. If the classic set wasn't strong enough, Blizzard continues to print very powerful cards for the class, keeping it in the meta for as long as possible. Valeera is a solid choice for ladder, as a lot of her matchups are well-rounded. Even her bad matchups can be won with enough high rolling, thanks to the nature of cards like Galakrond and Ticebear and Togwaggle. As you'd expect, Tempo Rogue struggles with aggressive board-centric decks, making Zoo Warlock and Tempo Demon Hunter problematic for it. When it comes to good matchups though, Tempo Rogue has a history of bullying slower control decks, and as such takes heavy advantage of Control Warrior and Galakrond Priest. If you're a fan of Rogue, then this is the deck for you. The last deck we'll be taking a look at in Tier 1 today is Galakrond Priest. This deck can be rewarding and fun to play due to both the variance in random effects and also the ability to play out differently than most archetypes. Typically, the best decks right now are all tempo decks, so having a control deck within Tier 1 allows for an alternate game plan for those who are fed up of playing the same thing as everyone else. Galakrond Priest is much like Tempo Rogue in the way that it can scam wins occasionally due to its random effects. This Priest deck is the best deck to play if you're encountering a lot of Warrior on ladder. Both Tempo Warrior and Control Warrior struggle to deal with the Priest's removal and endless threats, making this a poor matchup for the Warrior's side. As for bad matchups, Tempo Demon Hunter tends to run away with the game, as Priest can't consistently remove all of Illidan's threats while staying at a high enough health total to close out the game. Tier 2 once again becomes the resting place for all decks that aren't shaping the meta, but instead the results of the current meta. These decks are typically found as answers to the top tier decks, or are just extremely well-rounded archetypes that fall slightly short in terms of power level to Tier 1. Today we're going to be taking a look at the top 3 decks within this tier. If you want more information on the rest of Tier 2, be sure to check out the rest of our meta snapshot over at tempostorm.com. Now, leading off Tier 2 is Zoo Warlock. This archetype has been overperforming thanks to the meta shift, and if it wasn't for the prevalence of Warrior, Zoo would likely be a Tier 1 deck. All of the Zoo lists tend to have 2 things in common: Imprisoned Scrap Imp and the Hand of Gul'dan package. The list being featured runs a bit differently than most, and includes several cheap charge minions in order to kill the opponent once Scrap Imp goes off. Zoo Warlock tends to do best against some of the slower tempo decks, such as Rogue. Typically, Valeera can struggle to get online before the Zoo has closed out the game. As for bad matchups, Zoo Warlock will find itself struggling against Tempo and Control Warrior, as they can easily stave off the Warlock's pressure. Next up in Tier 2 is Spell Druid. Despite the nerfs to Kael'thas, this archetype remains to be the best performing Druid deck at the moment. Realistically, the nerf wasn't what impacted the deck's win rate, as much it was thanks to the rise of Galakrond Priest and the prevalence of Tempo Demon Hunter. Spell Druid can still scam wins pretty early into games at times though, thanks to Glowfly Swarm. Spell Druid typically performs best against Tempo Rogue or Otk Demon Hunter, as the deck will have enough time to make a nearly unremovable board. As for bad matchups, the previously mentioned Galakrond Priest as well as Control Warrior can be problematic for Druid, thanks to the countless removal options these decks have. The last deck we'll be looking at today in Tier 2 is Otk Demon Hunter. This deck has fallen out of the meta a bit, thanks to the rise of all of the Tempo decks, more specifically Tempo Warrior. That's not to say that Otk Demon Hunter is bad right now, but the archetype is just simply worse than Tempo Demon Hunter, making it a less than ideal choice for ladder. Otk Demon Hunter can be a good choice if you're running into a lot of Galakrond Priest, as the archetype bullies Priest to no end, leaving the Priest with roughly a 30% win rate in the matchup. On the other side of the coin, Tempo Warrior yields Otk Demon Hunter only a 30% win rate due to how much armor the warrior can gain, while also pressuring you out, removing your win condition entirely. It can be difficult to feel like you're gaining an edge in a meta like this when all of the decks play out pretty similarly. Luckily for you all though, we here at Tempo Storm have the meta counter for you. Backed by popular demand, we want to give you an archetype that will help you target out some of the top decks of the meta. The deck we're suggesting you check out this time around is Highlander Mange. This archetype finds itself in Tier 3 currently thanks to how bad the matchup is against Tempo Demon Hunter, but the deck is well-rounded and has a favorable matchup against both Tempo Warrior and Galakrond Priest. On top of that, the Rogue matchup is fairly even. Sadly, this deck can be hard to play on ladder due to how bad the matchup against Demon Hunter is, but if you find yourself running into other archetypes more, then we definitely suggest giving Highlander Mage a try. You can also sneak wins against Demon Hunter at times thanks to Dragoncaster and Deep Freeze, assuming your list has them. Highlander Mage is seriously a lot of fun and can really be rewarding if you give yourself the time to learn it. That wraps up our Tempo Storm meta snapshot breakdown. The meta is in a pretty good place, with most classes being playable. Hopefully Uther and Thrall get some love sometime soon, but until then, the rest of the classes will have to tie us over. Thank you all so much for taking the time to watch our video. If you enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and to turn notifications on to keep up to date with all of our strategy game content. Until next time.